Strength training can be a huge performance enhancer for your cycling, but it can also become your worst enemy and it can completely tank your entire season if you don't do it right. And when I first started lifting 8 years ago, I made quite a few mistakes that actually made me a lot worse. And I want to share with you the things that I've learned over the years that I really wish I knew when I first started lifting so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And if you're looking at getting into the gym, or maybe you've made some mistakes and you're trying to figure out what went wrong, these tips are really going to help you to dial things in further. My name is Landry. I'm a coach and the senior leader here at EVOQ Bike. And these are the 7 things that I really wish I knew when I first started lifting. Number 1 is do not lift to failure. So we as cyclists, we feel like we need to suffer to improve. And a lot of times we'll take that mindset into the gym and we feel like we got to max out. We hit the squat rack and it's like, oh, well, if I want to get better at this, I've really got to suffer. I've got to be empty at the end, just like I am with a VO2 max workout. But the problem is that is extremely taxing on the body. And if you are maxing out, your cycling is going to suffer. You might get stronger initially, but one way or the other, it is going to catch up with you. And this really happened to me one year where I really wanted to get stronger. I wanted to build some muscle and I was committed that I was going to get super, super strong in the gym, but I took it too far and I felt like I really had to max out on my lifts and I had to be doing like heavy lifting. And I got stronger initially, but what happened is by the time I got to the spring and by the time I got to the build, my legs just would not function. Like I could barely ride above threshold. I would go out and try to do a VO2 max workout and I couldn't hit the numbers because my legs were just shot. And it was basically just a chronic buildup of lifting too heavy over the winter. I ended up having to take a week off the bike. And then from then on, I was just doing like kettlebell work in the gym because I just way overdid it. And so one big rule that I have is you should always have at least 1 rep left in the tank, preferably 2, even when you're lifting really heavy. So say you're doing 8 reps of squats, you should feel like you could do 10 and then you stop. You should not feel like you are going to failure. If you feel like you've got to scream to get that weight up, you're going too heavy. The second thing that's kind of along similar lines is you don't have to suffer at the gym. If you are suffering at the gym, your bike training is going to suffer. You can't suffer at both. You got to choose, do you want to be a cyclist or do you want to be a bodybuilder? And if you try to be a bodybuilder, your cycling is going to suffer. And if you are lifting for performance, you have to hold back a little bit. And so you should feel like you're challenging yourself, but it should not feel destructive. And most days, you should feel better on the bike because you lifted. If you lifted in the morning and you're going to get on the bike in the afternoon, you should feel stronger, not weaker. Even the day after, maybe you'll have a little bit of soreness if you're doing a lot of lifting in the winter, but you should still feel strong. You should feel the strength benefits from the lifting. And you should not be going into the gym and suffering through your workouts. It should feel like, dang, that was a good lift. I definitely pushed myself, but I was not suffering. Tip number 3 is that form is so much more important than weight. You are going to get much more out of your strength training if you have proper form. I made this mistake starting out that I kind of let my ego get in the way. And I really felt like I had to increase the weight every time I went in. So I was like, this week I squatted 115. This week I got to squat 120, 125. Before I knew it, I ended up getting way too heavy of a weight. And to the point where my form was terrible. I was like half squatting because I couldn't even get down to parallel. Like you're supposed to get down to here. I was here. And I had actually a professor in undergrad that actually called me out on it when we were doing a lab for one of my classes. And he's like, yo, you should be going a lot deeper. And what I ended up doing is I ended up bringing the weight down on my squats and just focused on going deeper. And I got way more out of my lifts because of it. I got stronger. I built more muscle. My glutes got stronger. And so focus on the form first, not the weight. And if you get to the point where your form is not perfect, bring the weight down. As hard as that is, bring the weight down because you're going to get a lot more out of it. Tip number 4 is do upper body. Cycling is a full body sport. When you are getting out of the saddle, you're using your arms. When you're descending, when you're sprinting, you're using your whole body. And if you neglect to strengthen your upper body, you're going to be missing out on some performance benefits. And I've really felt this firsthand. So I started cycling when I was 14 years old. I didn't do any strength training until I was 20. So naturally, I had a pretty weak upper body. And over the years, I've really, really strengthened my upper body to the point where I've actually got a pretty darn strong upper body for a cyclist. And it makes such a huge difference. For example, getting out of the saddle. My arms used to get tired after like 10 seconds of getting out of the saddle. Now I can ride out of the saddle for days and my arms don't get tired. Another big thing I've noticed is core strength. So something that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these upper body exercises also improve your core. So if we're looking at like a shoulder press or a bench press or a chest press or something like that, there is a lot of core recruitment in that, and you will feel it on the bike and everything feels in sync. You know, you're going to have great grip strength and your shoulders are going to be locked in and your triceps are going to be stabilizing the handlebars and your core is going to be stabilizing your pelvis. You will really, really feel it if you strengthen your upper body. Not to mention, we just want to be well-rounded human beings. I mean, ultimately, you need to be able to function as a healthy human being who can lift heavy boxes and not throw your back out. So do upper body, and it will literally take you 15 to 20 minutes to do upper body in the gym, and it is totally worth the time investment to do upper body. Tip number 5 is to start off with higher volume. So I have found this to be really, really beneficial, is spending the first couple months of my winter lifting doing higher volume lifting. And we are talking 12, even 15 repetitions starting out to really, really get those movement patterns down and to really strengthen those muscles. And what I've found is that really helps me get a lot more out of my heavy lifts if I do that first. And the way I like to think of it is you're kind of building your base of lifting. So kind of like with how cycling, we always talk about doing a lot of base miles in the winter and doing a lot of volume, and that improves our peak down the road. It's the same thing with strength training. If you start out with higher volume in the gym, you're going to be building that base. You're going to be building those neuromuscular recruitments. You're going to be strengthening your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons. You're going to be getting that form down so that when you do get to the 5x5s, you're going to get more out of it and it's going to be a lot safer. And honestly, I actually feel stronger on the bike with the higher volume. And I think everybody is different here, but when I'm doing more like 8 to 12 reps in the gym on my lower body, I actually feel better on the bike. And so I will spend most of the winter in the gym within that 8 to 12 rep range. I feel like it's a perfect balance between like getting reps in the legs, but not going so heavy to the point where it really wears you out. So start off with higher volume. And if you are in your first year of lifting, I would recommend not even going below 8 to 12 reps. Like just stick within that range. Once you get more experience and you get stronger, you can definitely bump it down to like the heavier, like 4 to 5 reps, but always start out with higher volume in the gym. Number 6, and this is something that I actually recently discovered within the last year, and that is to do unilateral work. Always used to do bilateral squats and bilateral leg press with 2 legs, and I really didn't do unilateral work much at all because I didn't like it. You know, I just liked the idea of just squatting as heavy of weight as possible, and doing like a one-legged split squat just seemed annoying to me. And then of course you actually end up having to do more sets. So instead of just doing 3x10, you actually have to do 6x10 because you have to train each leg individually. But what ended up happening is I was visiting family for a month in 2024. I didn't have access to a gym. All I had was dumbbells. And so I was like, well, I need to figure out a way to make this more challenging, and squats is not going to cut it. And so I started doing Bulgarian split squats, the rear foot elevated split squats. And even just with 20-pound dumbbells, I noticed a difference on the bike. I was doing some 30-15s and I just felt so locked in and my glutes felt stronger and I could just generate more power seated. And I was like, dang, I need to start doing some of this unilateral work. So that winter, when I got into the gym, I really focused more on the unilateral work. So I started doing, my favorite one is the Bulgarian split squats and single leg press. And that was a huge game changer for me. It is crazy. Like, for example, my 2-minute power, there's the short little hilly KOM on Zwift. I literally added 40 watts to my 2-minute seated power just from split squats because my legs were just that much more powerful. And when I was hammering it up, that KOM, it just felt like I was doing split squats. And I really noticed a lot better ability to generate power from my glutes and also just generate seated power at or above VO2 max. So if you haven't done them, I would highly recommend incorporating Bulgarian split squats and single leg press into your training regimen. I think it is way more cycling specific and really, really can take your strength training to the next level. And number 7 is the last one, is to maintain strength training year round. Even just one lift per week can maintain most of your strength gains, and it makes such a huge difference. And I know I felt it personally where you get really strong in the winter in the gym, you get to February, you feel amazing on the bike, you show up to the group ride, your legs are just like pistons, you know, it feels like you're barely pedaling. But then you get to the season, you start racing a lot, you're doing a lot of intensity, and then you kind of slack off on the gym work. You get to the summer and you just don't feel the same. You just feel weaker. And like, sure, you have the top end, you have the base, but there's just something missing. And what that is you've lost your strength gains. All of those gains and benefits that you got from the gym, you lost them because you didn't maintain it. And something is always better than nothing. And it can be really hard when you're doing hard intervals on the bike and you're racing and all of that. But even if you can just make it to the gym once a week for even just 45 minutes, that will make a difference. Heck, even just doing something at home, even if it's just with dumbbells, is better than nothing. And so really commit to maintaining your strength year round because it will make a big difference. And when you have the combination of like your peak fitness from bike training and you've still maintained your winter strength, like that's when the magic happens and you will have some breakthrough performances, no doubt. And not only that, if you maintain your strength throughout the summer, you're going to have a higher starting point the next winter when you really start hitting it up in the gym again. So instead of building up some good strength and losing it all and then just spending the whole winter trying to get back to where you were, you'll have a higher starting point and you can build and build and build and build. And just like cycling, the strength training is a year-on-year thing, and you can continue to get stronger every single year in the gym. And by maintaining it year round, you're really able to build upon what you built the last year. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. Have you made some of these mistakes? Are there other mistakes that you have made that I didn't cover? What are your experiences? I'm really interested to hear, so leave those in the comments down below. And I'd also like to hear from you. My name is Landry. You can email me at landry@EVOQ Bike. I'm currently also taking on athletes for next season. So if you're interested in coaching, I'm happy to talk about that as well. And subscribe to our channel and give this a like if you found this video helpful. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.